For decades upon decades, conspiracy theories have long captured the minds of many individuals and groups across the world. The infamous ones will always spring to mind the moment somebody so much as speaks the phrase conspiracy theory aloud. The words alone conjure up questions like, were the moon landings really faked? Did aliens really have a hand in building the pyramids? And is there really a shadowy ancient order called the Illuminati controlling the events of the world around us? Of course, the answer to all of these questions is often a plain and resounding no, now please leave me alone. But delving into the world of conspiracy theories, collecting and connecting evidence can be an interesting exercise in imagination when it's all done in good fun. But there is often a dangerous side to conspiracy theories as well. And we don't mean getting so close to the truth that the men in black show up to your front door and haul you away to Area 51. No, it's important to remember the harm that some conspiracy theories can do. It's an unfortunate truth that a number of conspiracy theories, especially those more prevalent in recent years, are often used to unjustly villainize particular religious or ethnic minorities. Posting about ancient aliens can be fun when you remember that conspiracy theories have no actual bearing on the real world. But the line has to be drawn somewhere. The minute a theory starts to delve into unseemly territory, it's best to realize that there's very little truth to it. There is one infamous conspiracy theory, not a vindictive or harmful one, that has stood the test of time for almost as long as the moon landings or Area 51. Who really killed President John F. Kennedy? We all know or think we know what really happened on November 22, 1963, on that fateful day in Dallas, Texas. But what if that's the point? We all think we know, but each of us thinks differently. Grab your red string and shiniest tinfoil hats and take a seat, folks. Welcome to SCP-001, otherwise known by the appropriate nickname, The Conspiracy. Now, first things first, some important information. Anyone familiar with the SCP Foundation will tell you that there are multiple entities and objects referred to as SCP-001. Everyone has some idea which of these they think is the real one. But just in case you happen to be new here, we'll clarify for you. The designation SCP-001 doesn't refer to a single creature, object, or entity within the Foundation's archive. Instead, it's a collection of various anomalies that have been encountered and mostly contained by the SCP Foundation. As for why these various files are all collected under this shared designation, well, that's a conspiracy theory all in itself. It could be that these anomalies are some of the earliest ever contained by the Foundation, and were first encountered before they had established the numbering system that they currently use. However, could these multiple SCP-001s be an intentional misdirection? Smells like another conspiracy to us. Among the anomalies sharing the title of SCP-001 is the Gate Guardian, a powerful being believed to be an angel standing at the entrance to the Garden of Eden. Then there's the infamous Scarlet King, another anomalous eldritch creature with similar levels of destructive power, who is intent on one day causing the destruction of all creation. Also known as SCP-001 is a database containing all of the proof the Foundation's top brass has collected that prove their entire universe is the fictional creation of the SCP Wiki authors. Pretty wild stuff. And then there's this SCP-001, the conspiracy itself. As we mentioned before, it's connected to the assassination of United States President John F. Kennedy. Very closely connected, at least for a few seconds before it came out on the other side. That is because in this instance, SCP-001 is the bullet that killed JFK. Now, history tells us that on Friday, November 22, 1969, the 35th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, was riding in an open-top car as part of a presidential motorcade traveling through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. A former U.S. Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald opened fire on the president through the window of a nearby building, tragically killing JFK. But ever since Kennedy's death, there have been rampart speculation about what really happened in Dallas. Most theories suggest that there was a secret organization involved or multiple shooters in addition to Lee Harvey Oswald. According to the Foundation, through some anomalous means, the shot that killed John F. Kennedy was fired by multiple unidentified assailants, acting as a part of the same or numerous conspiracies, all shooting at the exact same moment. The events surrounding the bullet's trajectory are designated under the codename Incident 001 Gamma. Anyone alive that has memories linked to Incident 001 Gamma is part of the last population on planet Earth that can agree on a shared concept of truth. They know what is true thanks to all sharing an experience of either hearing about the Kennedy assassination or witnessing it in person or on television. When SCP-001 was fired, it created Incident 001 Gamma, which was both a pivotal moment in history and also had a lasting effect on everything that followed. It might not be obvious how just yet, but we'll get to the repercussions in a moment. The fact that multiple generations alive at the time of Incident 001 Gamma have a consistent memory of it establishes a baseline. Essentially because these people have vivid memories of the assassination, they also have a societal memory of everything that had occurred in human history up until that day in 1969. The evolution of mankind, the various wars that had occurred had all been documented and were held to be true. There was a shared collective truth among Earth's entire population, up until Incident 001 Gamma occurred. However, reality had shattered in some way the moment that SCP-001 was shot towards JFK. The sheer number of conspiracy theories that tumbled out of the Kennedy assassination weren't just rampart speculation. Not only did everyone on Earth now have a memory of what happened, they had their own version of what they believed they had remembered. For example, from the moment that Incident 001 Gamma took place and JFK was shot, there were already conflicting witness testimonies from people who were actually present in Dallas and saw it all happen. A significant percentage of eyewitnesses reported some variation of seeing a strange, unidentified figure referred to only as Badge Man. Whoever he was, even if he was just a result of civilians being unfamiliar with seeing Secret Service agents. Not everyone that was present at Incident 001 Gamma can agree if Badge Man was even there at all. The only two people that were definitely participants in the assassination were President Kennedy and Lee Harvey Oswald. History diverged for everyone from that point on, remembering everything that came before, but having conflicting memories of Incident 001 Gamma and everything that followed it. What the SCP Foundation knows for a fact is that Lee Harvey Oswald fired 3 shots from his vantage point on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. The first missed. The second delivered a wound to the president as well as Texas Governor John Connally, who was riding in the same car as JFK. The third and final shot was SCP-001, which vaporized the cranial cavity, killing him and causing Incident 001 Gamma. From that moment on, there now existed a confusing and contradictory number of different perspectives on the world's history, all conflicting with one another. People's perceptions began to divert away from reality over the course of the next decade. Slowly and unnoticeably at first, everyone could still agree on what had happened since Incident 001 Gamma for the most part, until September 5, 1975, the failed assassination of Gerald Ford, the 38th President of the United States. Multiple witnesses reported seeing different versions of the event, some even certain that President Ford was, in fact, killed. This even resulted in another attempt on Ford's life only 2 weeks later, by a woman who believed the president was already dead, attempting to make reality align with what she thought to be real. But it gets worse. President Ford had equally been affected by SCP-001, believing that the Soviet Union had withdrawn from Eastern Europe during the Nixon administration. In reality, this didn't occur until the late 1980s. That is the true effect of SCP-001. The disparity between what someone perceives to be real and what is actually real. It can often manifest in frustration. We've all once felt that we have the skills required when applying for a job, only to have a rejection email sent back to us. Some of us believe ourselves to be kind, good-hearted people, yet can't seem to find any friend that would agree. Living in a huge house can make a person feel cramped and claustrophobic despite all the space around them. You can feel that there is something wrong in situations like this, but you can't explain it. This effect of SCP-001 can often result in conditions like imposter syndrome, where someone has the belief that all of their achievements and successes are nothing more than a sham, and that the best parts of their lives are destined to fall apart because that person does not deserve them. That feeling of not belonging, the world not aligning with what you think is true, all comes from SCP-001. The phenomenon known as the Mandela Effect is also seemingly derived from the fractalization that occurred after Incident 001 Gamma. The Mandela Effect usually refers to a memory held by an individual or group of individuals that they believe to be true, but actually differs from fact. For example, the effect is named after Nelson Mandela, who died in 2013. However, countless people distinctly remember news that Mandela had died in prison during the 80s. Misremembering history comes as a result of a person's perception and their living memory being out of sync with that which is true. Often trying to undo the effects of SCP-001 can be more harmful to a person as having their perception vary so dramatically from reality. Say you believe that all of the Beatles were still alive. You were positive of it, and it had always been that way all of your life. Then somebody presented you with actual historical proof that John Lennon was killed outside his hotel in the year 1980. All the photographs, news reports, and other evidence in the world couldn't convince you that what you thought to be true, in fact, wasn't. Frequently, this leads to frustration and confusion that could, and often does, damage relationships with friends and family, causing isolation and disconnection of social associations. If everyone is telling you that John Lennon died, but you can't believe it because it doesn't match your own perception, you would gravitate towards people whose alternate viewpoints overlapped with yours. This is how echo chambers form, which spread and strengthen conspiracy theories, often making them more resilient against outside logic, as well as more extreme and pernicious. So who really did kill President John F. Kennedy? Ask Lee Harvey Oswald. He'd say he didn't do it and was instead being framed. Ask Fidel Castro and he'd tell you that he and his men were there in Dallas that day armed and on a mission to kill Kennedy themselves. Or there's the Umbrella Man who claimed he killed JFK with a modified umbrella. But ultimately speculating as to who killed President Kennedy is pointless. Every answer is right to someone. SCP-001 was the shot that changed the entire world. Since Incident 001 Gamma, nobody has been able to perceive the world in the exact same way as someone else does. If you feel confused, rely on what you know to be real, what you believe is the truth, and find comfort in the normalcy of that. Honestly, it's all you really have. Now go check out SCP-001, which is the real 001, and SCP-001, the Ouroboros Cycle, the full epic story explained for more on the ever-fascinating mystery that is SCP-001.